Today we're going to be testing every single trading site that there is in the Counter-Strike scene. Trading sites are absolutely everywhere, from almost sponsoring every YouTuber and Twitch streamer to sponsoring pro teams and even whole tournaments. And just to mention, no shade to any creators, of course you can take a trade site sponsorship, at least it is in Gamba, but I reckon it's also important to shed a light on the fees these trading sites charge, because sometimes it comes close to scamming basically. What I mean by that is, imagine if you're a kid who blindly just trusts his favorite YouTuber and then instantly loses like 30% of the value on his skins. I'd be very sad. And how do I know this? Because, well, when I was like 14, I used some of these sites, so I know how it feels. Therefore, we will try to expose the worst trading sites and also find the best ones and keep it fully transparent in this video. So for this experiment, we will use 3 different skins in different price categories, and these skins have to be liquid, meaning that they get sold often, so there's no confusion with the prices and we get the most honest outcomes from the sites. So for the high tier skin, I chose the stiletto knife doubler. This skin gets sold many times a day, so I'd say it's fairly liquid. The next item is the skinswap gloves in field tested condition, and of course these also are liquid and get sold a lot. And for the final item, we'll be using an agent, the slingshot agent, and the same story is with this one as well. And of course for this experiment, I've made a Google Sheet document as usual to keep track of all the trading sites and the fees, and I'll leave this in my Discord under the pinned tab so you can easily find it if you want it. So let's get started by looking at the sites. Now the first one and the worst one is ShadowPay. They value my skins at $632 and they take the exact same skins for $832. So a $200 loss. And how I calculate this is I take my skin and I take the exact same skin on their side, and then the percent difference is the effective value lost in the trade. And then I just take the average of all the trades and that will be the estimated typical trade spread. So it's not too complicated, but you can see 30% average loss. Now they do have this bonus feature where you get side balance when you trade, which is an incentive to trade more, but this is also bullshit because you're still losing a lot of money and the side balance is also worth less than $25 they're giving. If we want, we can just add $25 to this and you can see it drops down by like 2%, so 28%, still horrible. The next site is SkinWorld. This is another pretty horrible site. I mean, to give credit, they do have like all the skins, but the fee they charge is absolutely diabolical. So on average, about a 25% instant loss on your skins. I don't know anyone using this site, but if you are, don't. Moving on to SkinFlow. They didn't have any of the skins that I wanted to use, so I had to use some alternatives. These are also fairly liquid, but not even having all the skins and they charge a high fee, it's pretty bad. And they take a 21% fee, which is pretty bad. And I've even seen SkinFlow like advertised frequently. Also, a bonus mention is my gloves are pretty good float, so that should be like $40 overpay, but they don't add anything for that. But you can't really judge them on that, I guess. Now we have swap.gg. Basically the same story. They didn't have all the skins, like they had the slingshot agent, and yeah, you can just see you have to add $111 to be able to buy the exact same skins. It's actually disgusting. So they are at a 20% loss with a bad inventory. Now we have CS2, probably the biggest site on here, and it has also been around forever. Like even me, I have a lot of trades on the site. You can see I signed up in 2017 and I have 44 trades. I feel disgusted when I look at this. But yeah, they charge a 16.5% fee, which is kind of sad to see because they're so big. But I mean, it isn't a 30% fee, but you would have hoped they could do better for the community. Luckily, it does get better, so just hang around. Now we have dmarket, which is a fairly big site. They didn't have the crimson web, so we had to use foundation gloves. And we went from a 16.5% fee down to 13.7% fee. So we are getting somewhere now. Tradeit.gg, another huge site that's also been around for a good while. I also used this when I was younger, so Elmi, I guess. They have a really huge inventory, which is a plus. And they charge a 12.5% fee, which is alright. I mean, it's still shit. I know a lot of traders that you could get away with trading for like 3% loss. And I know this because I've done a bit of trading myself and I even made some videos about it. Of course, most of the traders don't have a huge inventory like some of these $1 million sites, but at least you're not instantly losing 12.5%. Wait, let me actually show you how you can do this because it's pretty easy. So you can take my Discord, for example. I have a trading room and there are like some pretty big inventories in here, like $80,000 for example, $125,000, $220,000. But you could easily just go to these trade links and I could like add the items that I want to get rid of and then send him something like this where you're losing 3.5%, but I bet he would accept. So yeah, it's pretty easy. You just have to price check yourself to make sure sure, and I also recommend you do that on other trading sites. But I'll leave the link for my Discord in the top comment if you're interested. But yeah, the next site is pirateswap. This is another really big site, and here we're losing $46. I actually did a test like this where I tried instant selling sites, and here pirateswap actually scored pretty good, but for this test they aren't the best. So they didn't have all the items and they charge a 11.3% fee, and I'm like happy the big sites aren't charging 30%, and I actually think this is like somewhat fair. Skinsmonkey, a really big site. I've seen these promote so many videos, you'd not believe it. So they offer this for my skins, and they have top up balance as many of the other sites. And like, let me tell you this, don't use a site that has like a 35% top up. It's just another way of pulling you into spending more money and making it seem like a good deal, because they mark up their skins so much. So you see the stiletto is like $703, but on CS Float they are $450. So they just mark the shit up for the knife, and I'd advise you not to like use the top up. But they charge a 11.6% fee, which is actually worse than pirateswap, but the prices have updated since I made this sheet, so yeah. But 11.6%, not too awful, not the best. Moving on to one of the new sites in this series, iTrade. This site doesn't have the biggest inventory, unfortunately. Like, they basically had none of the skins, and I had to look for a while for skins, like, where they had matching stuff. But they come in second place with a 10.16% fee. But yeah, a small inventory, not a great sign. The final side of the video and the test winner is skinswap. Having all the skins is pretty good. They also mark up the prices 40% top up, which we can already conclude is pretty bad to use. But they only have a 9.1% fee, and that is pretty impressive for such a big site. I feel like this is kind of fair, I guess, but remember you can also use CS Float and only lose 2%. But I do get that some people want the skins instantly. I would say if you really want to use the site, please use my link. Then I'll take like a 1% cut from skinswap, and it won't cost you anything extra. I'll leave a link for this in the description, but if you don't want to use mine, please use someone else's link, because you're not losing anything and you're just supporting the creators. So there were some sites that I did find but didn't mention because there was so little stock, it was actually unbelievable. So I'd rather just skip those because they won't be worth mentioning anyways. I also found one site with some very questionable allegations. Basically where the customer was saying after a trade they would only send one skin and take all his skins and then not send the rest of the skins, which is absolutely retarded. So I also left that one out just in case. If you enjoyed the video, please consider spreading the message and liking and commenting, subscribing, whatever you want. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.